tongue is numb, the Keurig's clean, your dog is dead, it's a Ponzi Scream. Ponzi Scream, Ponzi Scream, because it's just something to do.
Yeah, did you hear about those two bonsai trees that got stolen in Seattle and then returned?
No.
Yeah, I think we even talked that. No, yeah, a bonsai
That's
tree. There's a bonsai tree museum in Seattle, Washington. These two guys stole these like 100-year-old bonsai trees, and then a week later they returned them.
Aww.
Yeah, the little trees.
How much do you think that was worth? And were they like charged by the SEC, or was it like a?
Oh, I mean, it would have been these were like these trees cost thousands of dollars.
Oh,
like
no
easily.
Oh no shit.
They're 100-year-old little Japanese trees. Come on.
I mean, what costs more, like a tiger cub or a little bonsai tree? And then
a bonsai tree.
What?
Oh yeah. Absolutely, dude. You can make another tiger cub. You can't make another 100-year-old Yeti tree.
Yeah, but not a tiger cub that is affectionate like Lulu.
Nah, you can make another. I haven't watched that. I refuse to watch Tiger King just off of principle at this point. I'm sure
it's an exploitative show, man. Also, the owner's a fucked up dude. He doesn't pay his workers. He owns a restaurant.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. He doesn't. Yeah, he's bad. He's bad news bears. He didn't pay his B-bar employees when he furloughed them. And then he made like millions of dollars off Tiger King. Bad man.
Yeah, that's what are you telling me a guy who owns a restaurant is a dick? That's crazy, man. There's only a couple types of restaurateurs, and one of them is like an old punk from the 80s who is like almost insane and has done a ton of speed, but does make like a like homely fun place. The other is one of those like I lived in Thailand for 10 years and now I make Thai food in Portland, Oregon. For that costs 3 times the amount.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the insane millionaire maniacs who are just like, oh yeah, I definitely want to be a kingdom serfdom owner. And that's the Tiger King guy for sure. But we're not here just to talk about kings and tigers. No, we're also here to talk about David's union that is sort of happening.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. So we quick update. We went public on Monday, right? And what that means means telling our boss that we intend to unionize. Okay? They didn't respond for 2 days. We just sent the email. We launched our Twitter account. Follow at WeArePMWG on Twitter. And then on Wednesday we decided, since they hadn't responded, that we would, every single person who signed the petition would in unison ask during like a Zoom town hall whether the CEO will voluntarily recognize our union. And he saw that we asked the question, and then he said, well, I don't know. My initial thoughts are that he's Southern. That's why he talks like that. And he's like, my initial thoughts are that it's just very sad. You know, unionizing is very sad. And so
it makes me sad. I get all the feels when you guys do that. First off, they left you in radio silence for 3 days. And that made me think of those 3 little dots that you get when you know somebody's texting, but the message doesn't come through.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wait, are you telling me though that you essentially like digitally flash mobbed him?
Yeah.
Like you guys were all proverbially in Grand Central Station walking at the same time, and then you all froze, and he was the only person who was still walking?
In case you're wondering how white my office is, we did an improv everywhere to our CEO.
Yeah. Yes, you did. Yeah.
So we improv everywhere at him, and we sent it out, and it was. That's all he really said. And then on Thursday, we found out that they hired an attorney from, and I mean this accurately, they hired an attorney from the largest corporate law firm in the world.
Nice. We got, what are they, from Texas? What's going on here? Are they big?
This law firm is called Denton's, and they're not like the best law firm in the world, but by sheer number, they are the largest.
Yeah, by girth.
By girth, baby.
Yeah. Look, they're not the longest, but they got a huge amount of mass.
Yeah, it's a thick law firm, and so Denton's, they have some Denton's attorney, and then found that out on Thursday, and then on Friday, our CEO sent a letter at the end of the day on Friday for London time with like a full out explanation as to why they opposed the union. And they said it was really sad, and it would like again, and he said it would be like bad for company unity, that we need to be united in these tough times. Like he's saying it as if he's like Winston Churchill or something. Like, we're a financial publication, we're doing fine. Like, we just got a private equity capital injection right before coronavirus hit of like $90 million, $100 million, and they have been saying week after week that this has been our best month ever. All these financial institutions want to read our shit. And so then he's like, now in this time of tragedy, this horrible, wretched moment, these people are attacking us. And so then
it's absolutely mental, bro. What you're doing, your collective bargaining is mental.
What are you, stupid?
Stupid. Yeah. You got it. You got it. Yeah.
So
don't. You got to find a way to exploit every crisis.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
That's what he's thinking.
Yeah. So he did that, and then we sent a clapback on our Twitter account at WeArePMWG to read that, and then we sent almost an identical one on Monday or this morning to the CEOs and to the whole company. Okay. So we like basically hacked into we didn't hack. We like got the email addresses. I repeat, we did not hack. We followed the rules. We did nothing.
I'm in.
And by hack, I mean we looked up publicly available information for employees, and we got everyone's email address, and we like sent a response to the employees directly, being like, "Look, we don't want to divide the workplace. We love you guys. We're just trying to like have the same benefits that the UK employees have, and we want to be able to be paid a New York salary." And like, our CEO had basically said that wanting to have better pay and better benefits was having your cake and eating it too.
You can't. Oh no, you can't be throwing out French Revolution stuff. That's no good.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, oh, you want to end child labor and have a minimum wage? Like, what are you, Napoleon? Like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. So I mean, as if it's like a zero sum thing. Like it's a kind of a ridiculous logic if you think about it. Like
it's just offensive that you're trying to form a union and stop the unity. It's a time for us to be unified.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, dude. Obvious. There can't be more than 2 or 3 words with the prefix of UNI. All right. The fucking bathtub is full, my man. You can't do that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, for me, it's like underperforming noodle industries. That's UNI for me. But besides that, there's Union, Unity, United,
Unicycle,
Uniqlo, and that's it. Those are the only words. Let's start with that.
UNICEF. UNICEF
nice,
is one.
Nice, good one.
That's a very international, very good one.
But yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, so he's been doing all that sort of stuff, and he and then today. So basically, right now, after you go public with your union, you also file cards with the government, and then the government calls the 2 lawyers in from both parties, and they try to negotiate who's in the union and who is out of the union. That's what everyone tries to do, right?
Yeah.
And they've been trying to negotiate who's going to be in and who's out, and that's what we were dealing with all day today. And that's why I'm very tired, because I was on the phone and I was texting with people all day about that. So if I sound like a bitch.
I was gonna say, if you sound like a big baby bitch.
I sound like a big baby bitch. That's why, because
I was gonna call you a big wolf bitch.
Yeah. You wolf mother. Yeah. No, I always think that I really do love that sentiment. Like, it's so sad. Just because I don't know, like, obviously unions come up as a result of collective bargaining and wanting something better. So, like, if you really wanted to play it out to its, like, logical conclusion, there would be no unions ever if there were employers who were just like, I'm going to give you guys so many things and, like, actually follow through with that. it would be equitable already.
Well, if there was like a German, like in Germany, like they have employees who are like on the board of directors of every company. Like that sort of stuff is nice. I think that still having a vehicle for collective bargaining is, I think it's always necessary though. So I would
sure.
I think that that's like a helpful little thing. And Gabe is right though that like he'd been like, it's disunifying to want to unionize, and it's like, it only is if you say it is, bruv. We united together to form a union. I have talked to people in my office more through unionizing than I ever had by tenfold without the union. Like, I did not talk to anyone in my office before I started unionizing, except for like, coffee machine's broken, huh? Like, that was it. That was the only words that I said. And now I'm like, oh, okay, well, what does your dad do for a living? Like, now I'm actually having conversation.
That's actually, I mean, if we're taking it literally, it is sad for him because he is not in the union. It's just like the No Homers Club. Like,
hey, Billy. Hey, Joey, come on in. There's plenty of room. Sorry, not you, Homer.
Why not? But you let in Homer Glumplet.
It says no Homers. We're allowed to have one.
Yeah, he just wants to be in the club.
It's emotionally manipulative, like to personalize it, to be like, it's sad. Mm-hmm. It like that's like gaslighting shit that makes it sound like you're in a relationship with him that's like almost romantic or some sort of friend entanglement. Where if the contract that you guys have or the arrangement is one that is monetary and based on work, labor, and professionalism, then who fucking cares about your feelings, dude?
Yeah, man.
Like, all we care about is the paycheck, and we care about the conditions of the workplace and having a collective, clear-cut contract for how we're all supposed to behave.
And this is
I didn't come here to make friends.
And this is why I like ultimately left the nonprofit sector, is because the nonprofit sector, much like the tech sector, actually, from what I've noticed as an outsider, they both suffer from cool boss syndrome. And
big time, my man.
You worked in tech, so you know this better. But in nonprofit, it's actually a little bit weirder. Nonprofit world is like, let's go around, and before we start our meeting about our budget for the year, let's go around and like talk about our feelings and our weekend. Like, let's give everyone like a pulse check and see like what's going on with everyone's relationship with their ex-boyfriend, and go around and just do like a thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down as to like how you're feeling, as to whether you love me or not as a boss.
It's
and so they do that stuff, and it's really like, it feels like emotionally exploitative, because they're just like, come on, let's just all check in, see how our emotions are doing before we like go over like a really procedural issue about like how you're gonna make money this week.
Right. It also, any nonprofit, if it has a mission, anything that has a mission, they are able to sell you on that rather than sell you on a fair wage. You're always at, like, teaching has that. That's part of teaching too, where if you complain about the conditions in the classroom, or you complain about the lack of resources, or how you're being treated, then the management is able to point to the children and say, well, look, by striking, don't you see that you're hurting a child's education by taking a day out? Or why would you grumble and complain? You're being a bad role model to these kids.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Because you're doing it because you love it, right? If you're doing it because you love it, then why should you be paid?
Why don't you fucking marry your job, bitch?
You should say in response, like, oh, I mean, you're a boss because you love money, right? So if you're doing what you love, then you shouldn't be getting paid either.
Yeah. Actually, this is a nice little dovetail. I was watching the PBS Frontline documentary about Amazon, and I came out just before Super Tuesday, I think, like pretty much February of this year. And one of Amazon's core, quote unquote, like, mission statements is we are obsessive about the customer. Our obsession is the customer. And for years and years and years, yeah, I know, right? They were able to play it off and be like, no, we're doing antitrust because we love the customer, and we do this because of the customer. But then in the documentary, they very much allude to in the, I believe, not the Securities Exchange Commission, but like just whoever takes care of antitrust. They're just
FTC.
they basically the FCC. They basically explain like FEC. They explain like well, the thing is it's actually harder to follow through with antitrust suits and legislation and stuff if the company can prove it's for the customer's benefit essentially and not for their own personal expansion, which is like a real like fourth dimensional chess move by like Jeff Bezos to be like, we love the customer and we obsess over them and we pass all that stuff on to them.
I've been spying through your window at night, not because I'm obsessed with you, but it's really to protect you. Come on, baby.
Yeah, and also so I can build a fucking fort around your window in your house.
I broke into your house and I sniffed your panties because I'm like a police dog. I'm like a German Shepherd. I gotta make sure you're safe, and I gotta get your scent on me. You know, that's what it is, baby. It's not. Don't be freaked out. Don't call your dad. Don't call the cops. I'm a good guy. My name's Jeff. Okay. Enough with that.
My name is Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
Good dovetail though into the documentary that we all watch the new Michael Moore produced documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys watch it?
You mean Planet of the Humans?
Planet of the Humans. There's a couple notes on this. First of all, I would say, do not watch this if you're not having a good day. It's probably good. It's one of those. It's one of those.
Bummerooski.
That is like. It's very good. It's a very good documentary, and is also incredibly bleak. It is. It is one of the bleakest forms of art in recent history that I've watched.
I'll have a bummeroni pizza with extra cheese, and that's what that doc was.
Yeah, but it's a very good doc. There's a lot of good stuff in it, but the one thing that I noticed, and since we've started the podcast, was a little detail in the end of it. The basic theory of it is that all the green energy sort of industries that exist are as exploitive as kind of like petroleum and carbon-based industries, and they talk about how it's a really big growing business market in it. And more specifically, at one point in the documentary, they actually directly reference our good friends, BlackRock. What would you call them? An investment firm?
Asset manager.
An asset manager. And it directly relates to, I want to say, like episode 8 of the podcast or something like that, where we talked about how BlackRock was, quote unquote, moving towards like sustainables. And when I saw them in that back then, I made the sort of naive comment like, oh, it's like if Japan became vegan all of a sudden. But it turns out a lot of those sustainables are also just actually biomass, which is actually just wood. It's just literally wood.
that was the most astounding thing about the documentary, was just the level of literally just burning trees that we are at.
Yeah.
That was
dude, they went old school with it.
Or we're like, well, we need to stop extracting energy from the earth. What else can we get oil from? Why don't we just harvest all of these whales?
Yeah.
Let's go back to whale oil burning.
It was literally like, oh, the 19th century energy was bad. Let's do the 18th. Let's try the 18th again. Century.
Yeah, it was really intense, and I mean, it was also very illuminating. It's a really good documentary for people to confirm again that Al Gore is a piece of shit. He's in it for sure.
I actually did not think that it was a really good documentary. I'll push back on it a little bit. I liked it for 2 reasons.
Oh, sure.
I just want. I mean, like, I think that it's fair enough for us to have. And it's really more from like, I think its message of capitalism will not like save us from climate change is super important, and talking about how like all these like major environmental orgs are like can be easily bought and can be very easily corrupted are all very good like observations to make. I found some of his things a little confusing though, and I also really liked the way he talked about biomass. I didn't know all that about biomass, but some of the ways that he framed other issues were not as clear, and he didn't always focus on those two things. Like, he talked about how wind is so bad, and his example was he talked about how it requires concrete to be built. And I don't think that anyone has ever tried to assert that wind doesn't require concrete to be built. Like, I sort of feel like it kind of criticized renewable energy to the point that it tried to draw moral equivalency between coal and wind. And I just don't necessarily think that that's, like, fair. They also had this, like, one last thing on it. They also had this, like, mountaintop thing where they were, like, in Vermont, and there was his family about how, like, oh my God, like, this is basically, like, mountaintop removal for wind. And I found that to be, like, actually just straight up NIMBY bullshit.
It was very Vermont.
That was very, I actually found that, like, the fact that they were calling themselves environmentalists for, like, opposing the aesthetics of a wind turbine being put on top of this mountain, and they're like, I can't take my kids to this mountain anymore. Our future is gone because this turbine. I'm like, you may as well be Donald Trump complaining about the wind turbines opposing your view of a golf course. You know, like, that's the exact same moral argument they were making, but because they, like, present themselves as, like, a hippie aesthetic, all of a sudden they're, like, have, like, moral authority.
Now, my take on it is that we like to cover white collar crime here, and for me, a lot of that too is covering scams and covering the way that people misrepresent themselves. So what I loved about this documentary was how it brought greenwashing to light. I think for a lot of people who are walking around sort of sleepwalking, looking at plastic products and seeing that plastic product says organic on it, where there's nothing, we find a way where we've kind of put ourselves to sleep because we put recycling in two different bins.
Totally.
And then we've got our trash. And then you say, but like, the nightmare comes from just thinking, well, where does my trash actually go? Like, I put out 3 big plastic bags of trash every Wednesday, and then another bag of trash out every Monday and every Friday. And none of this stuff is, like, going back into the ground in any way that's sustainable.
Yeah.
So that's not, you know, and all of that is just ending up was being shipped off to China, we found out. And China isn't reusing any of this. It's just burning it. So that isn't connected exactly to what this documentary is, but it is how we have sort of gone to sleep thinking that like, what if all of us had Teslas? Like, if everybody in the emerging, in the third world, like this tech utopia that we think we're moving towards, if 1 billion people in India and 1 billion people in China and every American has a Tesla, then what is the actual amount of energy and the raw rare earth materials that need to be extracted
and carbon emissions reduced?
Yeah, the carbon might be reduced, but think of, like, what does it cost to have all of that, like, radioactive material or that lithium or all that stuff
certainly
put into a car that's only going to last for 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a very, the one thing from, like, a social standpoint and a production standpoint, and I don't know if you guys picked up on this too, but obviously this was a Michael Moore produced documentary,
an joint.
Yeah, it was. And I realized it only today that even though the guy who was narrating was, in my opinion, much less charismatic and interesting.
No, he sounded like
Michael
Siri.
Moore.
He sounded like Boy Siri.
he did. But it was totally for a reason, because in our year of our Lord, 2020, Michael Moore cannot go to any event with a camera and a microphone without people being like, I don't want to talk to you, man. I don't want to talk. You're gonna fucking make me look terrible. So he absolutely had to launder his ideas into that situation, and just actually that's the only way he could get his like the information he kind of wanted to get through.
Totally.
Yeah, he's suffering from the Ali G problem.
Totally. I really, really did like how it talked about greenwashing as a concept, and that is good to talk about that as a scam. I will say I thought it was a little behind. I think that we've talked about greenwashing, and it is advanced far more in the past 3 years, at least in the financial sector and the investment sector, and all over the place. Like there are like dozens. There's an entire cottage industry of people calling out people for greenwashing in the financial sector and everywhere. And I think that he didn't really focus on that. Like when the documentary talked about like this one fund that 350.org claimed was renewable, and it turns out it was not woke. That happens all the time. Like I spoke to a financial advisor who said that, yeah, we just don't even recommend any renewable energy investment vehicle promoted by Vanguard, which is like the third largest asset manager in the world. He said because they're just not good. They just none of them are actually legit. They're just so. I mean, like, what? I feel like what he did was he talked about it, he kind of glossed over it, and then he didn't really get into all the details. I mean, there are like separate indices for judging all the criteria by which something could be a false profit, could be bad, could be greenwashed in some way. You know, their sourcing is bad, their slave labor, they whatever ad infinitum, right? And those things all exist, and he didn't really go into that, and he kind of left you with one of two choices: being so pissed off that you are compelled to action and move forward and push things forward, or you're like, there's some parts of the documentary where he was like, where he literally interviewed someone, an anthropologist. The anthropologist was just like, yeah, I think we're fucked. And I don't think that that's necessarily productive, especially when he's not conveying all the facts or all the most like up-to-date facts. Like if you just have someone go on and say, oh yeah, we're fucked, the world is fucked, you may as well give up now, everything is bad, everything that you thought was good is impure and will always be flawed, then like that is just not good for the left. That's like not good for the planet. And if his goal as a documentarian is to promote the discourse and get people to be better as environmentalists, then I feel like that doesn't do it.
Here, this is what I think, though, is that Michael Moore has a very small fan base who I love what he's doing. And I watch this, and maybe I already have a pretty bleak disposition, but I can watch really terrible things and leave feeling like, well, it was really cool that raised my awareness around how this is bullshit. So I'm not going to waste my time and energy giving money to like the Sierra Club.
Yeah.
But
sure,
it also allows me to see that I don't need the documentaries or the things I read to give me a next step. I think that in and of itself creates a form of paralysis where, you know, we can say like, yeah, slavery is bad. Like, let's take that. And it's like, people could say that, but they wouldn't come up with they won't tell you what the next step is, because the next step isn't legislative. It's not democracy. Like slavery didn't end because people voted. Like it ended because of a radical civil war between, you know.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of everything for this, you know, because like I was kind of in the middle because, I mean, I consider myself to be a fairly well-informed person, but I mean, I guess I mean, like, look, I knew getting cobalt was really hard. I didn't think it was that. I didn't think it was that hard. And looking at it, I'm like, damn, you're right. All this rare earth mining is incredibly extractive and like just definitely destroys things for sure. And I mean, I think he could have said this more explicitly, which is just like, which I know sort of flies in the face in some left theory, but basically like, look, y'all, we consume a lot.
Yeah.
And we probably shouldn't. And not only should we probably not, but there are people all throughout the world who are not people who are part of the United States of America who do consume less. And that is, he probably should have just said in that, like, he should have done that weird infograph where it's like, if every person on the earth consumed as much as Americans, we would need 6 Earths. He should have pulled that one
I wish he had offered at least a few examples of like someone doing it right. You know, like instead I sort of felt like he was just like, I lived in the woods and I chopped down my own trees for my own wood stove and I had solar panels and then I became an environmental reporter. And then, but we don't really see like, he talks a lot about how all like various sectors of the renewable energy world are bad. Was it impossible for him to find one that was like, you know what, actually this one's doing okay? And instead, I feel like he kind of would get that would be something that I would like to see in terms of prescription. Obviously, like I think that like, you know, very radical systemic changes to capitalism are necessary to tackle the climate crisis, and I agree with that level of change is needed in the same way that it was for slavery. But I don't think that he really said that. And I also don't really think he didn't say that. And I also don't think he really showed us like a good company that was doing a good thing. And I also don't think he really showed us like, here's a village of people that are living a low carbon life. They just consume very little. Like he didn't show us really any solutions of any examples of like, this is the right thing to do. Instead, he like interviewed like a couple random Vermonters who were like, there's just too many people in the world, which is like, I find that stuff is like, should be discredited on its face. That is like Malthusian, very likely racist kind of stuff, in my opinion. And I don't know. That whole overpopulation theory thing is like really, really tricky territory, especially when like rich white people start talking about it, in my opinion.
Shout outs to eco-fascism, which is what I think you're talking
Yeah,
about.
bruh.
And
yeah.
dude, I fucking love how much he made two things. You're right, he didn't do a lot of good prescribing, but the people he hated on, chef's kiss. Like he absolutely, like when he showed those fucking stupid hippies, like there's one shot in that movie where it just shows some dirty hippie feet dancing in mud, and I was just like, so effective. I detested these idiotic Vermonters. And then the one other thing I was able to deduce from this, who's the guy who was in charge of 350, that bald guy, what's his name? Bill McKibben. That man's mouth looks like if an anus were talking. All right, he has one of the grossest faces that I've ever seen. Like he talks like an orangutan would talk. He's so disgusting.
He's got like Mick Jagger's mouth if Mick Jagger's mouth had like a bastard stepson.
Yes, it's like kind of there.
It's like it's like the wicked stepbrother of Mick Jagger.
I hated Bill McKibben, and I am really glad. And you're right. I think I think it could need some stuff, but I'm so glad there was a lot of shots of that asshole like straight up cavorting with like all these like you know fossil fuels and petrochemical like companies.
So, sometimes I would see this documentarian. What's his name again? Jeff. And he would be like interviewing someone, and
Jeff Gibbs,
and sometimes I just wanted to be like, "Hey, man, they're trying their best." Like he would like interview like a renewable energy company, and they'd be like, I see that you have some shattered glass that's littering the desert, and that is causing this solar erosion for these rare lizards. And I just want to be like, they're trying, man. I don't know what to tell you. They're trying. Just throw them a bone a little bit, you know.
There were a couple times, because you know there's like Bill McKibben had the most on its face like I'm just going to ignore you moment, but there were a lot of company spokespeople who are like, man, you're right about that. That's a bummer. That is a problem.
Yeah, there were.
Then he's like, look at this fucking asshole over here.
I mean, I also look at like what my final thought on this movie was that it just showed me how things get corrupted when you make a Faustian bargain with big business. You know, and
absolutely.
And I was just watching this and thinking, oh, this is like the DNC. This is everybody compromising right now to like get Joe Biden in office. This is us backing a Delaware Democrat instead of like a populist.
So I'm giving it 4 out of 5 bags of popcorn and one jam band, you know. That's what I'm giving it.
All I'll give it 3.5 barrels of crude oil and 2 solar panels.
I'm gonna give it 2 shattered solar panel glasses for the desert, destroying.
I'm gonna give it some Joshua Tree wood chips.
Yeah. Oh, that was sad to watch.
Oh my God, when they fucking they just.
And then I'm gonna give this movie 5 exhausted orangutans.
Yeah,
that was bleak as shit.
Oh my God,
guys,
yeah.
that was a perfect transition. Speaking of exhausted orangutans, Martin Shkreli seeks early prison release. Says that he can help with coronavirus.
Let my people go.
So
he's got the Martin Shkreli has the current record for most punchable face, but Bill McKibben is a close second for sure.
Oh yeah, I love him. They should kiss. I want to watch that.
I want to watch the episode of Oz with Martin Shkreli.
just getting shanked by J.K. Simmons or whatever he did in that.
So apparently,
Hell yeah.
So apparently, his lawyer wrote, Mr. Shkreli has spent countless hours while incarcerated researching disease treatments and possible cures for COVID-19.
Hell yeah, my man's got schematics on the walls. He's using napkins from the commissary and just like he's got beautiful mind sketches like plastered all over. And like his cellmate's like, "Hey man, leave me some space for my girlfriend's picture."
Yeah. He just got all the Snickers wrappers just sort of taped, just like.
Fuck
God,
yeah, dude!
What a fucking asshole!
Fuck yeah, dude! It's so funny.
He's using like the Tony Stark like defense. You know?
Oh
he's
He's
like, look, if you just get me these materials from the commissary and the shop, the wood shop, I'll make myself a suit. And cell.
I learned how to make another prescription drug costs 1,000 times more with just a pile of wood chips, a little bit of petroleum, and a heat source.
What I would love is if he actually developed this, if he actually cured coronavirus, and then he just like price gouged the shit out of it like he did the first time that got him in jail.
Oh my God.
Like if he just like actually found a cure and he's like, no, it's gonna be $20,000 per person.
Oh my God.
And you need to give me the Wu-Tang Clan.
Oh yeah.
An album? No, all of them.
So apparently one company is actually prepared to begin working on clinical trials of Mr. Shkreli's work within weeks. That company's name, Charlie Brown, football. All right, guys.
God.
They're just such fucking suckers. So stupid. There's no way he's gonna get out. I mean, there's no way. Man.
Yeah, that's one guy. That's one guy they're probably going to leave in there.
Dude, but I respect the hustle, man. You got to shoot your shot.
Shoot your shot, man.
Yeah, how did he get this? How did he get this press release out from jail? Like, did he talk to his lawyer? Or something?
They filed it.
Just like...
They filed it, and there was some journalist who was probably following his case. Yeah, I guess so.
God, think about that. There's some journalist is just like, everybody hates this man, but I know if I print something about it, it will generate 1 million likes and AKA $1,000. It's just for what? For what?
That's how journalism works.
Yeah, brother.
So speaking of being duped and everyone shooting their shot, key 2008 financial crisis players are back for coronavirus. All right.
Woo!
So,
Love
yeah,
it.
dude.
Yeah. So
You sent me this, and it made me think of the deck of playing cards that every American troop received when they invaded Iraq.
what?
Yes. Yeah.
Because Americans didn't. All of our troops didn't know what the enemy looked like, but so they got a deck of playing cards that had on every card was the face of one of the top Iraqi government officials.
Sick.
That they were supposed to capture or kill.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
How did it?
And what you're showing me now is this rogues gallery of all of our financial leaders from 2008.
Back, baby.
Are you guys there?
When things went really well.
So in 2008,
both
Steve
gone.
Mnuchin was the co-founder of Dune Capital Management. And in early 2009, Mnuchin led a group of investors who purchased failed subprime mortgage lender Indy Mac and ran the bank until its sale in 2015. And now he's the Treasury Secretary of the United States. Then Ben Bernanke was the chair of the Federal Reserve, and now he is a fellow at the Brookings Institute and a senior advisor at Citadel and PIMCO. PIMCO's a asset manager, prudential investment management company. Tim Geithner, president of the Federal Reserve in 2008.
Boo!
President of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in 2008. And now he's the president of Warburg Pincus. He helps manage the investment process at a private equity firm. So he works for a private equity firm now. All right, Tim Geithner. All right.
Yeah, it was Hank Paulson, Ben Bernanke, and Tim Geithner who were the main subjects of that weird Vice documentary, which we'll probably talk about
it's worth
at some
talking
point
about.
in the future.
Yeah.
Because it is utter, that one, I'm going to tell you guys right now, 1 bag out of 5 bags of popcorn. Real bad. But yeah, of course all these ghouls are back. Of course.
Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock in 2008, still CEO of BlackRock. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase in 2008, still CEO of JP Morgan Chase right now. Hank Paulson, U.S. Treasury Secretary in 2008. Now he's the chairman of the Paulson Institute. You can't just name something after yourself, man.
No. You can't do that. You have to, I mean, say what you will about, who's the guy who did Blackwater? What was that guy's name?
Eric Prince.
Eric Prince.
Say what you will about Eric Prince, but at least he named something something like Blackwater's real evil. Like he named it. He was like, nah, man, I'm a defense contractor. I am very evil.
So apparently now he is focused on improving China-U.S. relations in the Paulson Institute. What sort of money laundering scheme is that? Right? Like, focused on improving China-U.S. relations. That's got to be like he like has equity in like some rare earth mineral company, or like he owns stock in Huawei, or he like, I don't know, Alibaba. He's doing some weird stuff with Alibaba and Facebook data privacy sharing. Like I don't trust anyone who says that they're trying to, someone like Hank Paulson who's trying to improve China-U.S. relations. That can't be a force for good.
No, it means every month Hank Paulson goes over to the Chinese province with all the Uyghurs and then just kicks one of them in the balls.
So next we got Tom Montag, head of sales and trading at Merrill Lynch in 2008. Now he is the COO of Bank of America. Neil Kashkari, in 2008 he was the assistant secretary of the U.S. Treasury. Now he is the president of the Federal Reserve of Minneapolis. Raj Cohen was the chairman of Sullivan and Cromwell, which is a corporate law firm that deals with the securities industry. Like it's a Wall Street law firm. And now he's still the chairman of Sullivan and Cromwell. Alan Schwartz, CEO of Bear Stearns in 2008. Bear Stearns collapsed, but he is... but for some reason, he is the co-chairman of Guggenheim Securities. He is still allowed to work in the financial sector after he was the CEO of Bear Stearns. Just thinking about that.
Well, look, dude, how many planes did John McCain crash?
It was like 6. He crashed like 6 planes.
Dude, we love it. Like the more spectacularly you crash and burn something, we're just gonna give you another position higher up.
Yeah, you're just like, get in this party. Come on, I want to see what you can fuck up in here.
Next, we got Jim Milstein, co-head of corporate restructuring at Lazard, which is. Now he is
at Lizard. He's the co-structuring at Lizard.
He joined the Treasury in 2009 and oversaw the restructuring of AIG, the insurance firm that made big bets on the subprime market and crashed. Now he is the co-chairman of Guggenheim Securities. So Alan Schwartz and Jim Milstein, the boys are together.
Yeah, they're back in town, some might even say.
Bloomberg reported that he will likely be working on a raft of new restructurings in the current crisis as firms struggle with the economic fallout. That means your boy's trying to grift, all right?
Man, I mean, I mean, for what it's, I don't know if this is worth anything, but it just, like when the 2008-2009 financial crisis happened, I think that the biggest direct response to that was Occupy Wall Street. I mean, that was incredibly linked to that. You had the 99%, what have you. And, I think people are just, they're very much more mobilized today. They're a little bit more aware of some of the things that are happening. I really don't. I mean, all bets are off in terms of like whatever, organization or whatever sort of like collective voice appears from that. Because if it even comes out a fraction as much as it did during Occupy, like, woo, it's going to be a doozy, my man.
Oh, yeah, baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. God willing.
These are all the people that basically created the context in which Donald Trump appeared attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
it's a hard reset back to like the big grift.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. Yeah. We'll have to see. I had if I'm at all hopeful at all, I think the conversation will go a little bit different than a bunch of kind of like smelly activists in Zuccotti Park being like, "Who wants to have beans tonight? Who wants to have beans tonight?" It's we're gonna be different from that the old human megaphone days.
And I wonder how many people who created that aesthetic that you're talking about, Danny, were actually sort of like paid off provocateurs.
Oh yeah, that's entirely possible.
That were brought in to disrupt and undermine the solidarity of the movement.
I'm sorry, you guys don't like the mic check thing? Mic check?
Man.
Yeah, okay.
Who's here for real hip hop?
We'll find out, guys. Anyways, I think that we wake up every day and we just as if it's before the 2008 crash. Basically, it's like we're Drew Barrymore in 50 First Dates. That is what we're destined for. We're going to see the same people wake up and do the same thing all over again. And there were no consequences for the financial crisis. There was one person who went to jail, and I think that was because legally it was because he was Ukrainian, and that was that was legally sanctioned discrimination against Ukrainian people, and that's the only reason why he went to jail.
You gotta throw him in jail. You gotta throw all Ukrainians in jail.
I've been saying that, and so they and no one else did, and now all these guys are doing the exact. They're all back in the game, and that's exciting. I think that is a good segue into the last thing that we wanted to talk about, which is self-reporting.
Yeah, this is David. When David sent over the how would you put it, the readings, the literature for this topic, he self-proclaimed that it is a bit wonky. It's a little bit confusing, but I have to say, it is. It's actually. I mean, it makes sense to me, and it's the self-reporting thing. I have thoughts on it, but you start out, David, because I think you're going to be able to paint a little better picture.
Okay, so we're talking about a really, really specific area of mutual funds. Mutual funds are like retirement plans and things that everyday people invest in with their spare money, right? And when you do that, there are different classes of shares that you can invest in a mutual fund. And those have different risk levels. Those have different like capital requirements. Those have different performance things. So they're just different, right? It's like different little lanes on a highway that you can choose. And sometimes some of them can involve higher fees. These different share classes can involve higher fees for marketing and distribution of the mutual funds themselves, because then you have right, and those are called 12B1 fees. Those are marketing and distribution fees, or 12B1s.
12B1. Remember that specific order of letters and numbers, because that comes back multiple times. 12 B1.
So there are basically what it seems like is the SEC realized that there are a huge number of firms that have been coaxing investors into investing in share classes of mutual funds where they fail to disclose that they could have invested in share classes that don't have 12B1 fees. Okay?
Whoa.
Yeah.
So
Whoa,
that's what I'd call
whoa.
steering.
Yeah.
In real
Ooh,
estate,
yeah.
that would be called steering.
I mean,
Steering.
it's kind of, I mean, in a lot of like industries, it would be something that would be just kind of upselling, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But these people it sounds like the reason this is a problem is because they have a fiduciary duty.
Fiduciary duty. A fiduciary duty is an obligation to act in the best financial interest of another party.
Yes, they can't, under the Securities and Exchange Act, can't do that. Okay, they can't conceal information about the availability of cheaper options. And they were concealing cheaper options intentionally, mostly because people don't understand what the fuck they are, right? But also because they had a conflict of interest and they stood to gain from these fees. That's what it was. So they failed to disclose the conflict of interest. They hid this information, or they presented misleading information. For all those reasons, the SEC said, this is a bad. And what they decided...
It is a bad. I'm not good. I don't like.
So what they decided to do was they created this initiative where they created a self-reporting initiative where they said, all right, we know that this is ubiquitous, basically across the entire asset management industry, big boys, small boys, medium boys, all of them. They're all doing it. And we just give up your goods and we'll be lenient with you. And if you don't, then we'll be hard on you. And that's basically what they did. And so over 100 firms gave up the goods over the course of the past year. And they cooperated, they presented their shit, and they ended up giving back something like $139 million to investors in all these fees that they illegally collected, basically. And that's the majority of it. The SEC kind of went back and still... So some of their attorneys were like, "Oh, don't think that this is that means you're like off the hook, and that you can keep violating these 12B1 fee share class disclosure violations." They didn't, and they turns out the SEC still kept cracking down, even with people who cooperated. All right. The weird thing about it is that it's like, did more people get money back? And that's what I want to talk about, is like, did this do better for investors than if they had just continued to do regular enforcements and find these fees on their own and charge people for what it's worth?
I want to say my initial answer to that is yes, sort of. Like when I was reading this, there was a couple things that sort of popped into my head, and the first was this sort of all right, you guys, it's not like the jig is up, but we know that there's a little bit of cheating going on here. So ante up and let us know. And when I heard that when I read that in articles, the first thing that popped in my head is like, this is like white collar dream act. Like they want like, all right, we know there are illegal people in the country right now, and you guys are here through no fault of your own. It just sort of happened. But we want to give you citizenship. We want to have this happen. So go ahead, come on in and self-report what's happening. And nothing bad will ever happen. We're gonna fine you a little bit, but don't worry about it. And I think it's the opposite in the sense that I think the Dream Act is good, and that I think that people should be allowed to stay here. But I do think it is.
It's a little different also because you can make an argument that dreamers being in the country is a victimless crime, right?
Yeah, no, the only point that I was trying to make is like, yeah, man, if you self-report this, it definitely will make it so if you are a financial firm, you might be on a list, so to speak. They're going to have records of you doing stuff. So if you wanted to be evil, there's definitely less incentive to do this.
Because they're looking at you now. I mean, I just wrote a story.
Yeah.
So I didn't send you guys this, but I literally just finished a story today. One of the firms that settled in the first round like a year ago just got fined again for the same violations.
Yeah. I mean,
they got caught this time.
That's
good.
They
didn't self-report this time. They got caught. So
they didn't learn their lesson. They didn't change their behaviors.
I guess
there was no rehabilitation.
I guess so. I mean, it's kind of like, well, part of the good thing about it, you could think about it as like, well, they couldn't afford to hire more enforcement people because basically no one has raised the SEC's budget in like a decade. And they've been on a hiring freeze since the financial crisis, which is insane that during a financial crisis, they would have fewer SEC employees. It's a ridiculous concept, but they do. And what that makes you think about is whether that is helping investors. Like, are more investors getting returns from this or not? And I don't know. I can't really tell.
When you said 130 million, I was like, "Oh, cool, 130 million." But in my mind, I was like, I mean, there's got to be a higher number.
Oh my god, yeah.
Like,
this still is absolutely going on, and this is absolutely something that has been harming people for decades and probably will continue to do so.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, like, BlackRock is how many trillion?
I believe you said it's like 7 trillion.
Yeah,
is there a rating? Is there like a report card or a rating system where there are more trustworthy investment organizations that you can put your money into where they're not going to be doing this?
Yes and no. If someone is your financial advisor, they have a legal duty to be a straight A student. So it's kind of hard to really rate people because that's suggesting that anyone isn't a straight A student, right? That makes it tough. We have broker check. So if there's like an individual broker dealer, and if you guys remember, a broker and an advisor are different and they have different duties to you, right? So brokers have broker check, which shows all the times that brokers were naughty boys. And besides that, there's no real way of knowing except for kind of looking into SEC filings or following the news as to like who is robbing or skimming off the top or upselling their clients more than anyone else. It's not really, there's not really, I guess, to answer your question, Gabe, not really.
So there's no consumer advocates. There's no protection for an investor.
To be able to like give grades as to like how many violations or how much money individual gigantic, multi-trillion-dollar asset managers are forking over. I mean, I guess that would be something where for consumers, that sounds like that would be something either in the purview of the SEC or the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, frankly.
Because like you're telling me about there's some companies that self-disclosed.
Yeah.
And other ones didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the ones that didn't, would they get a lower grade or would they get a higher grade? Because if they didn't disclose, does that mean that they have nothing to hide?
Yeah, right.
Like,
come on,
and then of the ones that did disclose, was there a metric to decide like how egregious their upselling was? Were some committing more like misdemeanor level infractions of upselling by a couple dollars versus upselling by hundreds of thousands in terms of fleecing their clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's ultimately like the kind of the weird catch-22 that you're always going to get with some sort of self-reporting initiative is that if you ever try and use carrots to coax crime out into the world, into the public, you're never going to fully know what was actually disclosed. Because unless you do it by force, like what enforcement does, which is they get a warrant, they go in, they check all your stuff, they run all your numbers, and they look through and see what laws you broke. That if you do a self-reporting, you're just never going to have that. And you're always going to have Gabe's question, which is, was it enough? Was it good enough? Did I do enough?
Well,
who was the good guys and who was the bad guys? We're never going to know.
Well, okay. So I was writing this down so I could kind of like articulate this the correct way, because I think you're asking the question, was this a good thing? And the sort of argument for it not being as good as a good of a thing is that, like, well, we won't necessarily know this, but I was thinking about it, and I think it could be okay, if only from like a sort of like a perception point of view for the SEC, because you did say, like, this is a organization that monitors trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars as it sort of like moves through the economy, and it's sort of supposed to catch the bad actors, or at least have some sort of meaningful involvement in their day-to-day or what have you. And it's a institution that, since the financial crisis, has not really gotten many more workers. There's less people working at it. Like, to me, this sort of sounds, you know what this sounds like? It's like when I watched McMillions, where they were talking about how the FBI who looked into the McDonald's board game scandal was not out of DC or New York or whatever. It was out of fucking, Tallahassee, Florida. And because it was like this, it was a small FBI branch of the FBI who were largely underutilized. And trust me, I don't like the FBI, but their whole involvement with this thing, because they had an assignment, so to speak, it was like, we have been allocated this budget, and now we can sort of do more with it.
Yeah.
We can kind of go forward and do more. Now, I don't think that the Securities and Exchange Commission is always going to necessarily be a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
But when you even sent this to me in the first place, I was like, well, at least they're doing something.
Yeah.
Like, something is being accomplished, and
at least they're trying.
I don't know.
At least
yeah.
I think it's a sign of weakness, Danny. It's a sign of weakness when the cops have to come out and say, okay, guys, who's committing crimes? Show of hands.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you all off the hook if you just tell me who's doing it.
Well, I mean, that's the other thing too, is sort of the political will, because it's like, oh, dude, do I want people in like fucking like, Letterman looking like ass jackets that say SEC to like like go into a Watergate situation, find a bunch of people committing crimes and shredding papers? Like, yeah, that would be great, but like, it just seems like, for the political will for that to happen, for the resources. I mean, these are agencies where people are they're constantly talking about, like, oh, I got to get this approved through this and get this approved through that.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for them to actually accomplish anything, it just takes so much longer. They're just 5 steps behind the actual ball when it comes to doing it. And it's like, I don't know. I think I've learned, especially through doing this podcast, that like, financial companies, BlackRock, UBS, all these losers, they're going to commit 1 million crimes. So it's like, if we could catch 100,000 of them, I mean, it almost sort of feels like harm reduction in a way. Again, I don't think the SEC is even the best body for it. I wish there was some Avengers out there who were just committing vigilante white collar, like I want Batman to do to that Chinese guy, that Hong Kong guy in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, that was really cool.
where he
kidnapped someone from an airplane. Yeah.
That would be tight if that happens. It just doesn't seem like that is going to.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, man. I mean, and last year, before the initiative even really kicked off, there were some like investor advocates who were like, all right, I mean, let's see how it goes. It could be good. There wasn't really any real way of knowing. again, that gets back to the, was this good? Was this not? And like the story that I wrote about today, in a year ago, this firm, RBC Capital Markets, they're the Royal Bank of Canada. They got hit with a settlement of $11 million last March in the self-reporting thing. For the same violations, as far as I could tell, they got 3.9 yesterday.
Okay.
And so, I mean, I was expecting that if you did not give everything up, then they would go hard on you, right? That was kind of the assumption, is that if you didn't fully comply, I mean, because that's like any incentive to cooperate with this, is that the hope that you're going to get a lenient sentence or a lenient penalty. And I don't see that evidence necessarily with RBC. I don't really know. I don't know if they necessarily got as lenient of a sentence or of a penalty, even though they didn't self-report these specific share class disclosure violations. The exact same thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's also just building precedent too. It's like you. I also just watched the Waco Netflix series, and where they were, I get, initially they did manage to get 30 people outside of the Branch Davidians compound, and they did it through self-reporting like measures.
Okay.
And then and then they didn't, and then like 100 people burned to death because the FBI was just like, bring in the tear gas.
Word. You guys have any other thoughts on this? Should we call it a day?
All I would say is that as far as self-reporting goes, when you first said that, it immediately reminded me of my freshman inquiry class in college, where I had like a weird sort of woo-woo kind of like professor who wore a purple suit every day, and he would assign us readings, and then he would say, so go ahead and grade yourself on how good you did the reading. And we all graded ourselves, and we all gave ourselves 10 out of 10, my man.
That's
every
hilarious. Because when I was a teacher, my style was distant father. And if kids came, they would come up to my desk. This elementary school, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, they'd come up to my desk, and the ones that finished early, they'd show me their work and like think I'd be impressed or praise them. And I would just look at them and say, is that your best?
Gabe. The minds that you have shaped. Oh my, dude, you have made, there's no doubt in my mind that you've made minimum 100 sort of like pensive fireplace pipe smoking children just like wondering, like with a book of Sartre. It just like, is that my best? This is delightful.
Why don't you go back to your seat and reflect upon that? I'd like you to tell me what you think your weaknesses are.
Oh my God! Oh, did you ever teach high school students?
Not often. It's always a treat. High school kids have a sense of humor.
They're funny.
Yeah. That would be. I'd love to see like some
Mr. Pacheco.
Yeah. Just some kid coming into class like, you're gay, Mr. Pacheco, and you're like, is that your best?
Right.
And then
really.
Yeah.
That's your best.
And they're just like,
does that work on anyone?
You thought I'd be a pleased father, didn't you? When you called me gay.
And they're just like, I love you.
Yeah, I'm gonna call you Dad. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, this was so fun. Thank you.
I love you guys.
Yes.
You guys be safe.
Yeah.
Be healthy.
Just remember, is this your best?
Yeah. Hey, everybody out there, be better.
Be better.
Do your best.
Be better.
Be best.
All right.
Bye.
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 All right, get out of here.